Professionals spend nearly half the workweek on written communication, so focus is important. With Grammarly as your AI writing partner, focus and quickly get through work with relevant real-time suggestions. And it works across 500,000 apps and websites, so you can sound more confident and persuasive wherever you write. 93% of professionals report that Grammarly helps them get more work done. Download Grammarly for free at Grammarly.com/podcast. That's Grammarly.com/podcast.
This is your What Was Your Favorite Matt Gaetz' Attorney General moment. Leader Fan Radio Network.
That's all, I'm done.
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes, 4 seconds past the hour of 3 Central Standard Time. We welcome you back. It's a Thursday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a rather murky, rather overcast, rather calm after the Ice-Nami Thursday here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I am the host of the program. My name is Dan Barreiro. Garzi is the producer of the show, and we will be with you till 6 o'clock tonight. It is a 3-hour tour, customary on Thursdays during the football season. Plenty of good Vikings programming to get to. Followed by, I think your Minnesota Wild are back in action on the Fan, correct?
They are against Edmonton.
The Edmonton Oilers.
Flower in net tonight.
Is good, or is it the Edmonton Eskimos? No, that's the CFL team.
That's right. Yeah, this is the Oilers.
The Oilers, as we like to say in the business. Flower in net, you say?
That's what I read earlier today.
Intriguing. Interesting.
And our 97 against their 97.
Oh, you love that, don't you?
It was great.
It's
Connor McDavid, Kirill Kaprizov. It's going to be great.
Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line's available to you right now. 64686. And what do we have in store for you from a guest lineup today? I think pretty good. I feel pretty good about it. Sean Salisbury is back in the saddle. He is scheduled for 3:30 this very afternoon. A lot of ground to cover with our guy Shawnee. The inbox will be open. Dr. Dan's inbox at 4:30. Email Garzi if you'd like to get in on the festivities. JG. That's JG at KFAN.com. That's scheduled for 4:30. And an audible, I just tweeted out, Courtney Cronin's scheduled to join us at 5. She has humbly asked to be moved to 5:30 tonight. So that'll be our last good, meaty segment between 5:30 and 6 o'clock tonight with KFAN alum, longtime contributor. Of course, ESPN alum here, moving on now, covers the Chicago Bears and is on pretty much every single ESPN platform, radio and TV. So,
every vertical, every platform. She churns out the content.
Vertical and horizontal platform. Doesn't really matter. So that's 5:30. And we haven't had her on in a while, so I'm looking forward to that visit. I'm nervous, though, because in her life, 5:30 could end up being 5:40, and then ESPN says, no, you got to be on another platform.
That's true.
You never know with her. Or there could be some break. I don't think the Bears are going to fire anybody else this week.
Seems a little strange right now to do it.
It would be, I think. So there you have it. There is the Borton Volvo guest lineup today.
That is why she had to move. Is she had forgotten about something that had already been booked in the ESPN, I think Chicago family in this case, on 1000, your
ESPN
station.
1000?
So she'd forgotten about that.
ESPN 1000, you say?
They have the cool Michigan Avenue or Magnificent Mile studio, I think, right? Right by the river? They used to.
They do. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't recall.
That was always my dream.
The Score is on the lake, too, I think, although I don't think they have, like,
the street.
They have the street look.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that. In any case, that's the plan for today. I was about to ask this, and somebody has kind of read my mind. They are not the Edmonton Eskimos anymore?
Is that right?
Was that changed as concern with the nickname? That they are now the Edmonton Elks? Would you double check that?
They are the Edmonton Elks.
The Edmonton Elks.
I just love this. I just pulled up, the Google.
Yeah.
And the second, it's always Wikipedia first, and the second one's usually the official website. And the hyperlink to get to it says Edmonton Elks, our team, our city.
You love that.
I love it.
Very dramatic.
Bold.
The Edmonton Elks. Good alliteration there, but a long history as the Eskimos as well. It's official, I believe. Matt Gaetz, your guy for the Attorney General, is out. He has withdrawn, and he's doing it along the lines that one, I guess, might expect. I'm looking at, I think I don't know if this was something he said or something he declared via statement. While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. This is right out of the Spin Doctor playbook that goes back, and it knows no, party, and really isn't always even necessarily about parties. It can also be about people working for networks. It can be almost any job where instead of sort of owning up to, well, I'm in the meat grinder and I'm not going to get out, it's, hey, look, it's time for me to do the decent thing. I'm worthy, and I've got nothing to hide, but I'm becoming a distraction. So you kind of, you try to save face that way, which is interesting, is he just resigned his legislative position, right, as a rep. So
he did.
Can he change his mind on that now? I don't think so, because then the report would come out.
Yes.
And a lot of this might be his desire to not have said report to come out. Now, in the end, I don't know what the insiders are saying. Are they going with he was getting when push comes to shove, despite all the threats and discussion about recess appointments, that too many Republicans were saying, we're not going to be able to whitewash this, Mr. President. His chances are not very good. I honestly think what we should not underrate, too, and this isn't the most noble of reasons, I don't think you should ever underestimate the possibility that he was despised. That leaving aside the merits of what he might have been in the position and whether he was worthy of the position, though I like the way one righty had put it regarding his qualifications, barely practiced law at all, and no prosecutorial experience except as a target, law license briefly suspended because he stopped paying dues in Florida.
Yeah.
Legislative record? Doesn't have one, other than apparently sharing details of female conquests. And is there something also rather rich about his, up until now, declaration of we need unity and we're looking for unity in the party, when this is the guy who turned on J.J. McCarthy. No, not J.J. McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy,
yeah.
Right? I mean, he's the guy who started that insurrection, one could say.
Is that the Karl Rove piece from today?
That's exactly it.
Yeah, that was
the Rove
good.
Piece.
It was very good.
He laid it out very, very well.
Simple.
So, but those are too damning. So you go with the old, well, I was willing to hang in there, but it's really not fair to the administration. So I'm going to rise up, and I'm going to sacrifice myself, not because the report was probably going to end up being released or it was going to be redone during this vetting process, and more embarrassing details were indeed going to come out that one would not tend to associate with the Attorney General of the United States of America, right?
Didn't seem congruous.
The law, the idea, this is the guy that we're putting in charge of the law of the land and prosecuting the law of the land, might not be the best choice. Now, from the beginning, the conspiracy theorists have said Trump knew this was going to happen, and this will open the door. Now it's more likely he's going to get somebody else almost as unqualified simply because his name's not Matt Gaetz, and the reflexive reaction will be from the same Republicans who were warning him about this. Well, all right, this one we'll kind of let through because he gave us that one, so we have to give him something. So I don't know. Have any names surfaced yet?
I haven't seen any. I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, as you know, but I 97% agree with that conspiracy. That some of these are so wild just to throw everybody off the scent. And then
it can't be ruled out.
As Fetterman said, Fetterman was interviewed today.
Yes, in his hoodie.
I love the hoodie. It's a Belichick hoodie. And he did the sarcastic, I never saw this coming.
Yeah.
But he had a good point that you can't go crazy every day. But I also think that feeds into they're going to slide some stuff by because not everything's going to be as explosive as Matt Gaetz. There's going to be sneakier stuff that most of us don't really even understand, and that's what they're counting on.
In the interim, I'm assuming a Fox News show.
It's exactly what I thought. He'll probably take over for our guy, for Hegseth.
If Hegseth gets through, you're right.
Yeah.
I think that's a weekend slot.
He's got his own issues.
Yes, he does.
With paying off somebody that he was asked about, I think, today, but who knows? But I would think that would be a nice little side gig for your guy Gaetz.
Question, Davey. So that's it. Now, again, I will say, because there were a lot of people who predicted, and they're getting kind of ridiculed today, that stop it if you think any of these Republicans are going to do anything but go belly up and give Donald J. Trump whatever he wants, including Matt Gaetz. And I do think, at least in this case, we have some reason to believe that the word got back to Trump that no matter how much and how often we might roll over for you, and we weren't prepared in this case to roll over. Kessler said it yesterday. You can always make the argument, president's elected, he should get who he wants, largely in the cabinet. But remember, there's a thing called advise and consent. And so senators also have a right to do their job, which is to say you can nominate anybody you want, but it doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, or even on Fox News that I have to approve whoever you say automatically. Part of my job, at least in theory, is supposed to be to evaluate and to ask questions. And let's face it, those questions, regardless of whether, as I said, the report were going to come out, were going to be too uncomfortable. And my gut tells me there might have been a couple more shoes to drop that we don't even know about. And that deep down, that's the reason Gaetz said, I don't need this. I can now play the role of martyr, whether it's on Fox News or anyplace else. I'll have a lot of people behind me. I'll have a lot of people rooting for me like never before. And then this way, I won't have to face the tough questions, and maybe some of these, unseemly details will never quite see the light of day to the degree that they would if there was an actual hearings process. Let's pause. We got a lot more to get to, as I said, including Sean Salisbury. He is scheduled to join at the bottom of the hour. A big night for Giovanzi and me, a father-daughter movie bonding night.
Excuse me?
And it was Sunday night, and the motion picture was Psycho. I'm going to give you all the details, how proud the proud papa is at Giovanzi's reaction to a horror classic.
Black Friday is coming, and for the adults in your life who love the coolest toys, well, there's something for them this year, too. Bartesian is the premier craft cocktail maker that automatically makes more than 60 seasonal and classic cocktails, each in under 30 seconds at the push of a button. And right now, Bartesian is having a huge site-wide sale. You can get $100 off any cocktail maker or cocktail maker bundle when you spend $400 or more. So, if the cocktail lover in your life has been good this year, or the right kind of bad, get them Bartesian. At the push of a button, make bar-quality cosmopolitans, martinis, Manhattans, and more. All in just 30 seconds. All for $100 off. Amazing toys aren't just for kids. Get $100 off a cocktail maker when you spend $400 through Cyber Monday. Visit Bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.
So, I think I've told the story on air before. Giovanzi watched the original Jurassic Park, I think when she was 3.
Dinosaurs.
I think maybe 3. Yeah, that and Monkey Show.
Monkey Show, which was Planet of the Apes.
That was Planet of the Apes.
I love
one of the new Planet of the Apes, not the Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes.
Monkey Show? And
she called it Monkey Show. That was she'd say, let's see the Monkey Show. And I've been talking about, and it just Turner Classic Movies for whatever reason had Psycho on. I want to say it was Sunday at a weird time, like 5 p.m. And I started watching it, I think, and then I taped it, and then I stopped it because she was around. I said, hey, how's the homework? I've been talking to you about watching Psycho. Why not? So she started watching it, but I don't know what. Maybe it was a different day. She was very tired because she'd had a long night, been up late, homework, and maybe a night before when she stayed overnight with friends. I can't recall. In any case, she only made it like about 40 minutes in. So I said, well, we'll punt and we'll figure it out later. Well, much to my delight, a couple nights ago, she brings it up. She goes, hey, we should finish watching Psycho tonight. I mean, music to my ears, you know. I mean, my 14-year-old daughter, I'm assuming, first of all, she's going to dismiss the whole thing as boring. Is it going to hold up to a kid who's 14 years old at all in his generation that has seen the kind of horror movies she has seen? But yet she's saying, yeah, I want to pick up where we left off on Psycho. And it's truly heartening for a father to have a moment during Psycho, the Alfred Hitchcock classic. I think it was released in 1960. Black and white, which, you know, she doesn't even understand that whole concept. Like, what does that mean? There's no color.
I had a conversation with my kids about that last week. Like, were people just black and white and gray? I said, no, there was color. They just couldn't capture it.
Everything felt noirish in black and white. They I think it did actually serve a good purpose for that film. I can't even imagine that film in color, although actually it's been done in color because it got redone horribly, which is another story for another day. With your guy, I think Vince Vaughn, wasn't it? I think Vince Vaughn was in the Psycho remake.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't want to give it away because it's not that old a film. 1960. There might be some people who are going to watch it tonight for the first time. I don't want to spoil it. But there's a couple of twists, not the shower scene, but much later. I actually think more dramatic suspense/horror moments. And she looks at me and she says, Dad, this is getting good. And I'm going, that's it. I can retire now. That's it. That's all. You can go to college now.
My parenting is done.
I'm done. I mean, one of my favorite suspense films of all time that I didn't see for the first time, by the way, until I was at Indiana University, believe it or not. I didn't even know why, but I didn't see it till then. And I'm thinking, like I said, she's going to fake liking it, or she's not going to really like it all that much. And for her to turn to me and say, Dad, this is getting good. I mean, the smile on my face, are you kidding me? So a smashing success, good conversation about the film after it was done. And it does remind one that the assumption is always, well, it won't hold up. Or kids of today are too knowledgeable about things that they can't suspend their beliefs the way a lot of us did when motion pictures were more innocent or when they were younger, I think is often false, right? It might be true in some cases, but in this case, she left the experience utterly and completely satisfied. Now, again, she's not had the normal movie upbringing. You know, there may well be parents who are horrified that we watched the motion picture Psycho at all together, even though it's nowhere near as graphic as one could see today. It's creepy. It has some twists. It also has some fairly deep subjects about, you know, Norman's obsession with his mother. I'm not giving away too much if I say that. There's a lot of stuff on a lot of levels in that particular film. And I've been waiting for the right moment. I thought about it even several years ago. I said, I'm not sure it's going to work right now. Not sure it's going to translate. And it all came together over, like I said, 2 nights. And the second night, she was in heaven. She was actually disappointed when the film was ended. We had a nice kind of, you know, okay, let's talk about this a little bit. Because at the end, she's wondering, is that it's Anthony Perkins speaking in his mother's voice. What does that mean exactly? Oh. Is that like, is she somehow alive, or is that his brain is at a place where it has been taken over by memories of his dead mother? The music, by the way, very well played on your part, is outstanding.
Except it's creeping me out at 42 years old.
So you've never seen Psycho?
No, I'll never watch it.
The famous thing about Psycho at the time when it appeared in the theaters was the declaration that set it apart was because of a very important early scene in the film that is key to the rest of the movie. You will not be seated after the film has started. Now, these are the days where there were ushers, right? Where they would escort you into the seats, and they're saying, not going to work. You got to be in your asses in your seats on time for the start of the movie. And I don't even know if they actually kept to that, but that added like, whoa.
We got to get there.
And then, obviously, the film, the thing that set it apart among the critics and even for viewers was the Janet Leigh shower scene, which is, for its time, pretty graphic, extremely violent. Now, again, the blood doesn't look like blood. It looks like ink because it's a black and white motion picture. And the thing I learned the other day is it was not Anthony Perkins, who plays Psycho, the Psycho in the film, who actually slashes Janet Leigh in the shower scene. It is a woman, kind of like a stunt woman. Mm-hmm. Anthony Perkins apparently wasn't even in California at the time that took place, which is kind of, I thought, an interesting nugget as well. But so at least for one 14-year-old Giovanzi, it held up nicely. And I like to think part of the reason it works for her is I've conditioned her, because if you start watching creepy movies, scary movies of various sorts at the age of 3, maybe by the time you're 14, it's not that big a deal. That's and right. You're ready for it. While others over the years have ripped me for, what are you talking about? Jurassic Park when she was 3? Are you out of your mind? And it kind of continues the Barreiro tradition. In our family, for whatever reason, when it comes to horror films, we've all started pretty early, and we've all felt like, we can handle it. Everybody in our family can handle it. And apparently you couldn't even now.
No. I think it was an episode of Unsolved Mysteries that ruined it for me when I was too young.
That was it, huh?
Yeah. Somebody got shot through their kitchen window, and they never figured out who it was. And that just ruined everything for me.
Well, that's traumatizing.
I don't even go into my kitchen at night now.
Man.
I just take a hard right when I get home. So I think the obvious question is, what's next on the Barreiro Father-Daughter Movie Club, Horror Movie Club? Well, there's the ad.
Good question. Very good question.
What's going to be next?
Very good question.
Where do you go after Psycho?
There's not many places to go because there's not many better. And my point to her was, to me, the scariest part is the monster is a human. It's not a special effects monster with 8 arms and 12 legs and 3 heads and all that, where blood's gushing every 15 minutes. A lot of it's understated. A lot of it is unspoken. And then when it goes over the top, it goes over the top big, as in the killing on the staircase scene. And I probably have given away too much information for those who are going to DVR it or had already DVR'd it and intended to watch it tonight. Sean Salisbury is next. We're going to talk pro football with him. Vikings back in action in Chicago against the Bears. Do the Vikings have anything to fear? And we'll talk who knows what else when it comes to pro football with our guy Shawnee next.
Black Friday is coming, and for the adults in your life who love the coolest toys, well, there's something for them this year too. Bartesian is the premier craft cocktail maker that automatically makes more than 60 seasonal and classic cocktails, each in under 30 seconds at the push of a button. And right now, Bartesian is having a huge site-wide sale. You can get $100 off any cocktail maker or cocktail maker bundle when you spend $400 or more. So, if the cocktail lover in your life has been good this year, or the right kind of bad, get them Bartesian. At the push of a button, make bar-quality cosmopolitans, martinis, Manhattans, and more. All in just 30 seconds. All for $100 off. Amazing toys aren't just for kids. Get $100 off a cocktail maker when you spend $400 through Cyber Monday. Visit Bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.
Next guest probably feels pretty vindicated in one significant way. If you go back to the beginning of the season when we were previewing the Vikings he told us then that he had, on the basis of the folks he tended to trust when it comes to evaluating the quarterback position, some belief that the Sam Darnold experiment in Minnesota had a good chance to be successful. And the overarching story is it has been. He might have had one of his best games in the victory in Nashville, Tennessee. And Sean Salisbury, the interception bugaboo is still there. That's, I guess, the one ongoing concern, although he certainly minimized that in the last game. Let's take it to the next step. Now that you told us, look, I think he's going to be better than people think, and he clearly has been. Can it translate? We're already looking ahead, let's face it. They're going to make the postseason,
right.
But we're trying to figure out, okay, without the resume, can you project the postseason the same way and say, no, I think, I'm not asking you to declare that they're going to win the Super Bowl with them, but that they have a chance to be a viable team in the postseason. Can you go that far, or is that a step too far even for you?
No, I think they can, and it's weird, Dan. What are we? What, 8-2 now? Is that what we're staring at? Or 9-8?
Correct. 8-2. Right? 8-2. Yep.
Mm-hmm. We were discussing it on my show this morning about going through if you had 25 grand to bet on a team, give me the pecking order of 3 or 4 teams in the AFC and the NFC. Who'd you put in? And everybody leaving the Vikings out of it. And brought up, I said, are we respecting Minnesota enough at 8-2? And back to Darnold, and I appreciate that. And the truth is, at the beginning, I still feel the same way I do, and even better now. And I'm going to tell you why I feel better about Darnold, is because he sustained it throughout the season. Now, I never want to, before I answer that playoff question, I never want to coach out of him his ability to take a few chances, right? Yep. And I really don't, because when that starts to happen, you start to short arm and aim and squeeze the ball. It never ends well. The key is, and I'm thinking back to the 2 losses, the truth, and he's thrown a couple red zone interceptions, but for the most part, this season, he has not thrown the interception on a consistent basis. It's killed your football team. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which he has done in the past. I mean, and I get it. I mean, where he's been, he's had, and I'm not saying that that's okay to do, but they haven't been able to overcome interceptions in the places like the Jets and the Carolina Panthers. Now, in San Francisco, as a backup, most of the time get a little love. They're a better team, but he wasn't the full-time starter. And those 2 teams previous, they could not overcome bad plays. Here, if he makes a mistake, they've been able, or he has, the Vikings, get stop on defense or get the big play or make something happen to where they've won and sustained. 8-2 is pretty damn good. And if I'd have told you at the beginning of the season Darnold was going to be the quarterback and you were going to be 8-2, most people would have said, yeah, Sean, what are you smoking, right? And here we are. So with that, and like I said, the people I trust and myself and watching, there's way too much talent there. The one thing everybody said is you got to be. There's a way to be aggressive without being stupid with the football, and he's for the most part done that. And if he has had multiple interceptions in a game, he's also been able to combat that with making a couple, making some plays. Yep. So I think he's confident enough. He's not a self-promoter, which I like. And I don't think Sam, and part of the reason I think postseason success can exist, I don't think it feels he's played near his best football. But I told you at the beginning that I felt if he was coached hard but coached well, and that somebody turned it over to him where he didn't have to play like, I'm the second pick or the third pick of the draft, and everybody in New York expected. And now I'm trying to rejuvenate myself in Carolina, and we don't have players. Now he realizes for the first time that he doesn't have to be the guy or that guy. He just has to be one of the guys and protect the ball. So there's a slippery slope of saying don't throw picks, but stay aggressive. So I like that, and I do think they can, because I think the majority of the national media and fan base thinks the Vikings are 8-2. Now, I don't know how you do that when you couple some of the wins they've had. I hear the same thing about the Texans at times, too. 7-4, but the quarterback gets sacked too many times. They don't look the same as they did last year, yet they're dangerous with their weapons. So I do. Now, I don't know, whatever the gauntlet is that they're going to have to go on to get through, Detroit or Green Bay or Philly, however that comes out. But I can tell you this, in the postseason, if you do not turn it over, and if you're smart and you run it, and they can. Look at last week, Dan. If I'm not mistaken, because I check this stat every week, 33 attempts for the Vikings, 19 for Tennessee, for 30-some yards for Tennessee. They're getting stops on one side, but they're running the ball enough that play action will be effective. Mm-hmm. They play enough defense. They run the ball effective enough, especially when they're hitting it with Jones and the rest of the group. And if Darnold protects it, why not the Vikings? Why can't? And I contend the NFC is not as deep. I do as is the AFC. I'm talking about at the top.
Right.
The Vikings are good. Detroit and Philly sit. I would think there's a little separation, right? Other than that, you're throwing Green Bay and you're throwing. You're throwing the Vikings in there. The Arizona Cardinals. We're not real sure. Can the 49ers at 5-5 go on a run? Who obviously the Vikings have already beat. So I do, Dan. I do think they can. Now, if they get behind and Sam feels like he has to make every play, we'll find out. And he hasn't seen this, but I can tell you this: in big moments at SC, like in that Penn, I know it's a long time removed. But when he played in that Rose Bowl against Penn State, when he was a redshirt freshman or a sophomore, and he threw 5 touchdowns, well, that catapulted him to the first round. Everybody said, now that guy's a big game player. So if he still has memories, and I always say recall memories that they were good. Go when you come up there, recall the good. In a Rose Bowl with 105,000 people against Penn State, it's a good memory. So in the postseason, for him, it's just got to be able to find that, throw it aggressively, and Kevin continuing to believe in him and throw it 25, 30 times a game without, doing something stupid that puts your defense in a short field.
Are the Bears, of course, the Vikings' next opponent, are they, and that game's in Chicago,
Yep.
Are they a danger at all, or is that the kind of team at this point where you go, if you push them over hard and you go after them early, they shouldn't be a threat? How do you think the Vikings and Vikings fans should view that game?
I think if that was a column you were writing or going on it on one of these, Dan, on the show like this, you come out of and say, here's how you beat the Bears. That's exactly how you beat them, because then their quarterback, and then pressure them. He is really good off schedule, but he hasn't proven yet. And I think he's going to be a dynamic player as long as, again, the right coach comes in this next season, which is more than likely going to happen. And pushes mechanics and pushes, instead of just, enhancing his strengths, what we know that are natural, is get him in position that, whether it's Ben Johnson or somebody else, to where, or what Kevin's done with Sam Darnold, to where let's get you great on the simple stuff. Because the truth is, Caleb Williams, the simple stuff's some of the hardest stuff for him right now, learning and processing all the information that rookie quarterbacks go through naturally and normally. It's normal the way he's playing as a rookie. It's not Jaden Daniels or C.J. Stroud rookie years. This is normal, but you see the dynamic talent in certain games. You say, man, he can step out of trouble. If I'm playing the Chicago Bears, I do everything I can to make him beat me from there. Mm-hmm. The last thing you want to do is over pursue and make him get to the edge where he can do some spectacular, crazy stuff, which he'll do. So I think that you hit it. You attack them, get up 21-3. I don't think he'll have the patience to sit in there and do it. And I don't think Chicago will too. But the danger side is, and we've all seen this movie before many times in sports, is, sorry, my dog doesn't even think the Bears can. He's my 100-pound bully. So I'm not going to put you on mute because then I can't talk to you. So,
that's okay. It's good background.
There you go. Yeah. Well, a 100-pound bully, and his name's Kilo. It's because all the muscles on him. He's got pounds and pounds of muscles, kilos of muscles. Yeah, big boy, but a good boy. For the Chicago Bears is you get after them early, but desperate teams that, and when I say they have nothing to play for, of course they do. Their pride and their jobs and all that. But when you really are kind of testing out, you got a new coordinator, and Matty Eberflus is trying to save his job. Now the question is Eberflus got to the point where he says, you know what? I don't really care what they think about me the next 6 weeks. We're going for the throat, and we are going to let it rip. Dangerous team. If Matty Eberflus is playing not to lose his gig, the Chicago, they'll play it close to the vest. He's got to cut it loose and let their offense and defense do their thing. And in order to win a handful of games, they're going to have to do some special stuff, whether it's special teams or not. So for me, they're dangerous in one fashion. Now, depending on watch the Cowboys. Those Cowboys, Dan, I think that they have checked out, right? And that's who the Texans play.
Yeah.
I mean, it may have been 5 weeks ago, but they have checked out to the point where it's like they'll hang around for a minute, but then once you get up on them and start bearing them, they're like, you know what? Not for us right now. We're not going to do this. But the other side is if the players haven't checked out, no matter if the fans or the media has, dangerous team because they're trying to prove to the world that they still got something left, and you try to disrupt the flow of other teams that are going to the playoffs, and it's a rivalry game. So dangerous. Put it this way. If it's 17-14 in the fourth quarter, those are the times you got to worry.
Then you worry. Yeah.
I don't like allowing one-possession teams to hang around because then a spectacular talent can beat you with a crazy throw or a crazy scramble, and you're like, what the hell just happened? And this is a game, in truth, the Vikings can I know they can lose it and still make the playoffs.
Right.
But they got bigger. There's still a big picture in mind, Dan. There is.
No question.
I mean, there's no undefeated team in the NFC and with the AFC now either, but no undefeated team in the NFC. So, damn, with 6 games to go, the schedule gets tough for some. Why not the Vikings? Why can't they sit at home during the playoffs? And this will have a lot to do with it.
Where is Aaron Rodgers going to play next year, in your opinion?
I don't see how he's not playing there. I don't see how he's not playing there. Now, okay, I'm going to throw you got to make me go here. Do the 49ers love him enough and say, well, we love Brock Purdy, but man, 1 year. Remember the talk they were having with Aaron Rodgers? I mean, with Tom Brady.
Yes.
You know, that flirtation. Are they willing to do that? In truth, right now, and I'm going to say something that pains me to say because, you know, I think Rodgers is a hell of a player. Yep. We all know all the other stuff that goes into whether you buy into Aaron Rodgers off the field and all the stuff that goes on or those things, or how much control he has. But is Aaron Rodgers better than a guy like Brock Purdy right now? That's what I'm going to ask you. Do you have a better chance to win with him? Maybe with all that personnel, but the Jets aren't a hack team. I mean, personnel-wise.
To your point, the fact that it's not a slam dunk tells you right there that it's a question worth asking where you go, well, you think so, but really, is he at this point, or are we seduced by the name? Because I've seen a lot of rough edges, man. And again, it's not all on him, but that would be. I mentioned yesterday, we got crazy yesterday and said, well, Darnold, we're all assuming is going to leave here this year, one way or the other.
Right.
And so then we're back on schedule. JJ, you worry sometimes, not worry, but I'm fascinated with, is there a head coach when the head coach is an offensive mind?
Yep.
Does he get seduced with, me and A-Raj?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. For 1 year? That's what fascinates me.
Yeah, the seduction of, we don't have to stay in it long. But we can get 1 year out. Let's see. Right?
Yeah.
The name right now, the seduction of his name and who he's been, in my opinion, is far greater than who he is right now as a player.
I agree.
Honestly. And listen, I'm trying to be fair, but the truth is we can talk about the Jets and all their woes. He's part of the problem. He has not played. Now, I haven't seen put together 2 or 3 games in a row of Aaron Rodgers football.
No, he has not.
Is it father time?
100% true.
Is it an organization that doesn't believe? And if we believe the rumors that Woody Johnson wanted to sit him down after week 4 or something and bench him, I mean, is that true? So my guess is going to say the Jets, and they're going to let him play through that. And because of the intrigue. But there will be somebody out there that if they were to move on, whether it's Kevin and Sam leaves and you're trying to teach JJ, whether it's the 49ers who love Brock and say, ooh, let me be tempted by the Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers thing, whether it's one of these, because if you're Rodgers at this stage, you ain't going to Carolina. And you and I both know it. Right. You're not going there. But to go to some place, then I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what are the good teams that are playoff teams that are still enticed by or seduced by the Aaron Rodgers name? And as you go through them, there's not many.
No.
There really isn't. And that's weird to say because going into the Achilles injury, before that, we're like, oh, he's going to play like an MVP. And here we are, and he's part of the problem, and the Jets are awful, and what's going on with the Jets and Giants. If it was me right now, from the body of work I've seen this year, I can't do that. I can't move on from one of the – and the only reason I say the 49ers, because I think Purdy's a good player, is all the fascination they had with Brady. And, they love – and LaFleur, all that connection of that offense, right? Mm-hmm. So he's part of the problem. Right now, I'm not putting my franchise in his hands right now. I'd rather start the rookie J.J. McCarthy. if that's the case,
Yep.
if we could.
Yep.
So, and I don't normally say that about Aaron Rodgers because I love his game, but his game is part of the Jets' problem right now.
If Jerry Jones called you tonight and said, who should my next coach be, what would you advise?
Well, first off, I'd say, well, Jerry, and I like Jerry as a marketer and as an owner. The rest of it, Jerry would have fired Jerry 15 times over in the last 15 years, right? Every year, he'd have fired him. I'd say, first off, Jerry.
Fire yourself?
No, I'd say, well, he'd already done that because we know that for a fact. I would say, number one is, are you willing to not be the face of the organization? Dan, I don't know, when's the last time in the National Football League that the face of an organization was your owner and the spokesperson? Can you name one?
Not really.
And
not like him.
Yeah, you could because you're brilliant at this stuff. But if 32 owners walked into a room right now, and for the average football fan, most wouldn't know 28 of them, wouldn't know their face. You might know Clark Hunt because of the Super Bowl. Yeah. You might know a Rooney because you wouldn't know Bisciotti in Baltimore. Most people would. No, 100%. I'm talking about outside their market. Yeah. You'd be like, but everybody would know Jerry. And he's the one who's in the hallway after the game answering all these questions. I can tell you what I'd tell him. I'd say, are you willing to put your ego and pride aside to go win again and let you sit back and sign checks and do all the marketing and make everybody popular and be the big shot? Let us get a football guy who will also get a head coach. But if you're willing to let the head coach be the power guy and make decisions with you on personnel and be the spokesperson where you're not the face of the organization, the Cowboys will win. And, of course, my first call would be to Belichick. I know he's a little older, but one thing I know, you give him a quarterback and give him time to build it on an organization that's willing to spend, that I think Bill Belichick can win. And I don't know if Bill's got it out of him. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't want to do it anymore. But it'd be pretty intriguing to coach the Cowboys if, in fact, Jerry just said, do it. Now, there's the Deion Sanders intrigue with that, but 1 year or 2 years in college at the Division I level, at the FBS level, is hard to make the transition. But I know that intrigue with Michael Irvin pushing it. Yeah. Jerry loves stars on his team. Jerry doesn't love stars as head coach. Think about Dave Campo.
It's true.
All these are good. Campo, Jason Garrett, Wade Phillips, Mike McCarthy. The list goes on and on. Outside of Jimmy and for a short time, Bill Parcells.
Yeah, that was short.
Where he was willing to say that guy's more powerful than me. So
with Jimmy, it didn't last.
That's exactly right. And if it would have, they'd have won more Super Bowls.
Exactly.
They would have won more Super Bowls. So he's let his ego and pride since the mid-'90s ruin their ability. They haven't even been to an NFC championship game since. So I would tell him, I'd give him I'd say, of course you want to interview Ben Johnson. Hell, I'd say go get him. You want your offense to look like something? Go get a guy who puts his foot on their throat. But, and I don't consider Belichick a retread. I consider the speech got old. It was time to move on. And you may not have as much fun with Bill as a player, but I know one thing, as Tom has said, Brady, winning championships is a pretty fun time. So if you want to switch it around, get a guy who will make sure the building is on time, that there's none of the theatrics that go on and all the chaos, go there. But I would sure as hell tell him it doesn't matter who you hire as the head coach. If you're still the face of the organization, we're going to flounder.
Last item for you, and it's from college football, believe it or not, because we've covered a lot of good ground today outside the Vikings. Do my Hoosiers have any real shot to shock the world in Columbus, Ohio, in obviously the game of their season? They've had a great year. They've dominated almost everybody but Michigan, but they've had an extremely soft schedule. So are they living on borrowed time? And you can tell me straight. I can take it. I'll be okay.
Dan, listen. Remember, I'm a USC guy, so I got nothing. And a Raider guy, growing up. So the combination of the two can't beat Indiana right now. So I'm going to tell it to you straight between the eyes, like I would at any time, and be honest about it. It may be the biggest game, and it'll be the biggest win since Keith Smart hit a jumper, or Kent Vincent and Quinn Buckner and that group were part of that team.
Correct.
And Bob Knight was coaching them. I love this team, and I love the coach, and a great football family, Signetti, right?
Yes.
I do think they have a legitimate chance. Why? They are confident, and I actually think there's more pressure, far more pressure, on Ryan Day's Ohio State Buckeyes than there are on. I do. Why? Has there ever been a coach over the last 5 or 6 years that's won more games that people want to fire every year? He doesn't win that one. Now, he got the one in Penn State, but people have been on his ass about it. And you even hear whispers, well, if he doesn't beat Michigan or if he doesn't get to the final or win it, then Ryan Day's job's up, which seems absurd to me. They're the most talented player-for-player team in America is Ohio State. But this is different. This is not, well, we're on a lucky roll. We've won 7 in a row, but we've beaten, this is, we're in the Big Ten. I don't care who they've beaten along the way, but they're playing like a team that not only belongs, but there's enough physicality. The quarterback is good enough to make a bunch of plays. So for me, can they stay in it? Yes. And I would contend that if it's a 6-point game and they lose, they have no business dropping out of the top 12.
No,
None.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When people say, well, look what happened to BYU. BYU lost at home to a 3-win team at Kansas. Kansas went to Provo, but a 3-win team beat them in their own building. So, no. I think that they do have a legit chance, and I'm anxious to see exactly how, if they can keep close, because Ohio State has a tendency at times to allow people to hang around.
That's true.
I think Indiana, I'm not a big momentum guy game to game. I'm an in-game momentum guy. I'm a confidence guy. And I actually think that Indiana believes that they can beat Ohio State. And I do too now. Hey, you come out and you give up, you turn the ball over and you get down 21-0. That train's going to start rolling. But the key for me is that the physicality part of it, I think they can keep up now. They've got, how they are receiver. They got people everywhere running it and throwing it and catching it. But I do, Dan, and I think it will be, to me, it's one of the great stories of college football or any level of football is just how every week. It has. And I'm sure you're loving it. And an underrated college town for those that haven't been to it. I love Bloomington.
Tremendous.
But I'm going to tell you, for me, Saturday and Sunday, this is a game I will watch every friggin' snap because I want to see just how it is. But, and it's not, I don't want a consolation prize, but if they're close, Indiana belongs in the 12 if they keep this close. You're going to tell me if Indiana loses that a 2-loss SEC team that's been beat, or even though I respect Tennessee, that we're going to drop them that far out if they lose this game and they're sitting at 5. Now I want you to look at the good part of it. They beat Ohio State. Dan, they're going to be ranked 4th in the playoffs.
It's crazy.
They're sitting at number 4. Yeah. As if we're playing the Final Four in the in Minnesota Metrodome, getting ready to play college basketball. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's been awesome, and I love the coach's energy and his yeah, man, we'll just keep showing up. I think it's going to be interesting, and watch they'll get a little uptight. Will Ohio State fans and players if this thing's in the third quarter and Minnesota's winning this game? Now Ohio State's still going to be in the playoff, but then the questions will creep in. I think this game's going to be closer, and I do give you a chance.
I appreciate that, and I may text you if it stays interesting. You might I might bug you with a couple of texts as the thing's playing out in real time as well.
You're not bugging me at all. I'll be sitting there looking for them because I'll probably have a little bit of in-game action going on anyway, brother.
Probably will. Outstanding work again, my friend. We'll have a wonderful Thanksgiving because obviously we're off next week, and we'll get it back together after that. Thanks again as always.
It's a great celebration of Thanksgiving part of it for you with your team winning. Thank you, buddy. Always appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. That is Sean Salisbury. Joins us each and every Thursday. And I like kind of branching out today, getting beyond just the Vikings and talking about a lot of other, I think, interesting, if you're a football fan, football issues. And I tried hard to save the Hoosier Hotline for the very end. The very end.
I have no objection.
And it's a national story at this point.
Yeah,
there's no question about that. Here's my question to the audience during the break. Because I haven't studied this closely, and it might be a good question for you, too, because you've studied it more closely than I do within the Big Ten. The Indiana, the biggest concern I have after the Michigan game was it's the first time I saw the Indiana offensive line looked overmatched a bit. Does Ohio State have a great defensive line? Because whatever Michigan was doing at the line of scrimmage, that offensive line that had been great this whole season, they looked a little skittish. So how good does the Ohio State defensive line grade out? Is that a strength of the club? We'll take that under consideration. Lots of good horror texts to get back to our psycho discussion earlier, and several other things we'll prepare you for. At 4:30, the inbox, and Courtney Cronin will join our final segment of a truncated 3-hour show at 5.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them, the right tools and supplies are never far away. So the One can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.